The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Come. In the name of God, Creator, Redeemer, Sustainer. Amen. Come on, baby. You can do it. I don't have children of my own, but I've been that person in the chair, and perhaps you've been the person in the chair or crouching down, arms extended, as a little person between 8 and 18 months old takes tentative steps toward you. Come on, you can do it. You lock eyes. She or he is thrilled, grinning, and then she or he looks down. Realize that this whole adventure is wildly improbable and doomed to failure. That the self on 2 feet is not sustainable. Suddenly, this little person is like a plump zucchini attempting to balance on 2 tendrils. Crash! She or he collapses into shock or tears or both. You scoop the little one up. Maybe it's time to try again, or maybe it's time for a nap. Take heart. It is I. Do not be afraid. 3 of the 4 Gospels, Mark, John, and Matthew, tell us of Jesus walking on the sea during a storm on the Sea of Galilee. But only Matthew gives us this image of Peter getting out of the boat and attempting to do the same. Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. Jesus replies with a single word, more invitation than command. Come. Come. Come on, baby, you can do it. Jesus doesn't pick a bone with Peter at this point, doesn't contend with Peter, as he did with Satan in the wilderness when the prince of darkness asked for divine proof points. Command these stones to become loaves of bread. Throw yourself down from this pinnacle. This is a pattern that will persist, of course. If you are the Son of God, come down from that cross. Something is different this time. Something is happening between Jesus and his first disciple that's perhaps easily overlooked. Peter hasn't said, "Let me walk on the water like you." He hasn't said, "If you are the Son of God, activate my superpowers." Instead, he has said, "Command me to come to you on the water." Command me to come to you. Peter understands himself to be in a chain of command. In other words, in relationship. And what he wants, judging from his request, is union. Union. Communion. Not power. I don't think the evolving toddler wants to walk as much as he or she wants you, the person beckoning and inviting. The one foot in front of the other is emerging reflex. And it's thought, it's anxiety, it's crippling self-consciousness that brings the whole thing crashing down in tears. But when he noticed the strong wind, he became frightened and began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me." We have to wonder what might have happened to Peter if he had kept his eyes on the prize. Which begs, of course, the question of the week. What can God do through us if we trust the power of God in us? We've met also Elijah this morning, a hunted man on Jezebel's most wanted list for his faith. He's hiding out in a cave. He, like Peter, is also terrified. We have Paul reaching back into Isaiah to assure us that faith safeguards us against shame. And Jesus says one word to Peter: come. So much in that monosyllable. Come. Come and understand yourself as one who is in relationship with me. Come and understand yourself as a beloved child of God, that the divine is in you even when you deny it. Come and understand that this relationship is stronger than wind and raging water and failure and anxiety and death. These may do damage, but are not your final future or the meaning of your life. Come. The wind is there, the water is there. For that matter, cancer is there. Addiction is there. Failed relationships are there. Unemployment is there. These are real. But come, says Jesus to Peter. There is something under and around all of it that is your first meaning. Your first meaning. You are mine. You are beloved. And you are made to find your ultimate meaning in loving, in relationship with me and others. That is walking the walk, so to speak, on the water. We sink like a stone when we forget the powers that are not our own. The word is near you, is the assurance given this week by Paul to the church in Rome. The word is near you. And sometimes we can't hear it because of the wind and the water. Sometimes the words as Elijah heard it, is in the silence. Come, says Jesus. Take a step. That's the word that is always near us. A word of invitation. A word of confidence, even when we don't have confidence in ourselves. I have a friend and former classmate, Judith Dupre, and Judith is an architect by training. She's written books specifically about church architecture, about bridges, about public monuments. Her most recent book is about the reconstruction of the World Trade Center in New York. What interests Judith is the interplay between our constructions, our buildings, and the life of the Spirit. She reminded me once that God's very first words to Adam and Eve aren't come, but kind of related. Do you remember what God says to these two? Where are you? Where are you? Do you remember? It's the breezy time of the day. It's late afternoon. Adam and Eve are concealing themselves like guilty children behind the sofa. Where are you? Says God. His question to Elijah this morning is almost as pointed, almost as blunt, and in fact, it's repeated twice this week. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? What a question. Now, beauty in our public buildings, beauty in those spaces where we find ourselves, where we do things, beauty in our public buildings, beauty of any kind, Judith submits, is never about the merely pretty or the conventionally, commercially attractive. Beauty is actually near the root, she says. Beauty is near the root of all of our ethical behavior because beauty pulls us out of the self, and into a world larger than ourselves, our own grief, our own pain. As an architect, Judith is interested in how we locate and orient ourselves, and as importantly, how we understand what is beyond ourselves. Come, says Jesus. It's an invitation out. They thought at first he was a ghost, death. And then they comprehend, we can imagine, something beautiful. Life. Moses, you may remember, is shown something strangely beautiful, a burning bush that is not consumed. How beautiful that must have been. Red and green and gold, persisting, enduring, unimaginable, as vivid a refusal of death as a man walking on the sea. Moses is shown something strangely beautiful, and his life begins again. Come, says Jesus. Come, says God. Trust in the life to come. Do not be afraid.